Hit record, stupid. So, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? We brought you a wonderful show, almost a whole entire hour until I realized I didn't hit record. But anyway, welcome back to the Nostalgically Hip podcast, the podcast where we are completely serious 100% of the time, and we talk like this
all the time.
All the time.
Like
and then alligators, marbles, and watermelon, and the Constitution, golf, of course, cart. That's my impression of Biden, by the way. What's up, Brian?
Nothing, buddy. This is it. We're already getting off to a good start. Got the politics rolling in, and what more can a guy ask?
It's just my frustration, man, from an hour and a half of trying to fix our technical difficulties.
Yeah, we got to get our shit together, dude. We're not. I mean, we want to be pros, but we can't.
We got 6 people listening. There's no pro shit.
Hey, they're important people.
They are.
Yeah.
I'll send you the check later. But sometimes you got to pay for listeners.
We can do that.
Sometimes you get paid for pussy, but what am I don't know.
You got to start somewhere, buddy.
Forget about it. Anyway, last week's show I thought was great. Talking about Stephen King but you weren't as happy.
No, I mean, it's not that I wasn't happy. I was just saying I would like to have a little more humor, but when it came to that, it seemed to get like when I went back and watched it, I was kind of like, man, I just seem awful. Maybe it was a little too close to my heart because like we had discussed. I grew up reading him and everything like that, and I think it was sad, and I used those words, and I guess I must have meant it because on just looking back on it, I was like, man, I seemed kind of sad.
That's all right. Just go give you
a fucking joke normally, and apparently not that night. But hey, it is what it is.
Well, just go home and kick the wife and fuck the dog. You'll be all right.
Right.
That's what I used to do. Not your wife. My wife. Yeah. Or your dog.
Oh, I'll leave my dogs alone.
That's what I'm saying. It wasn't your dogs. It was. Anyway, moving right along. I'm going to let you take the lead on this, but you came up with a fantastic idea, and I'm all over this one.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, all 6, will like this.
That's right.
Yeah,
and if they don't, they're not getting paid.
Right. It's I actually titled that, and I think I sent that to you the other night. I'm going to go ahead and read it if I can pull it up here real quick because I didn't have my shit together. So we had talked about it on the last podcast, but I couldn't find it then either. And you're like, don't worry about it. I sent it to you that night. And so this was, I wanted this to be kind of titled, I'll put my glasses on. The Missing in Action Heroes. So what happened to the masculine tough guys from our childhoods? Why are men like Arnie, Stallone, Eastwood, Bronson, Norris extinct? And why have they been replaced with the dopey, helpless idiots that can't survive without the help of a strong woman? So it's just going to be a freaking reflection, a look back like we do so well.
I love the freaking title. I automatically think of Chuck Norris when you read that.
Yeah.
Because of the Missing in Action series he did.
Yeah, that was a play on words, right?
Totally.
I am.
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea behind it because it's something that I think that anybody who grew up in the 80s would agree with. If you before when we were talking about doing this, we said, hey, we could actually do a compare and contrast where we take actual heroes from the past and then, what do we have today to offer? And we were both real quickly like, well, what are we going to cover there? Who's it going to be? Is it going to be, first off, they're not male action heroes, so you'd have to go a completely different route. And then you'd be hard pressed to find an actual hero that was real. I mean, when I say real, I mean it didn't fucking fly or shoot rays because those don't exist. There's no real
right
a hero that your kids can be today, but we'll get into that.
this society today is all about toxic masculinity.
Chuck Norris is a great point.
Yeah, I think we just stepped all over
From what
each
you
other.
see on TV. Yeah, believe me, where I'm living at and where most people are living at, you're never going to get rid of that. You might try to stifle it in these kids, but that's only because they want to bow out of it. You know, look at all the UFC fighters. They can't. There's a lot. There's a lot of leagues. There's a lot of fighters. There's football. Which at every intersection they try to get rid of football. And it's funny because there was last year when the guy got hit. He head on and he had the heart attack, and they were coming at football. The Colin Kaepernick thing when he was kneeling on the sidelines and he was, everyone was like, "Oh, this is great." That's not what they were cheering for. They want football to fall. They want bad, negative attention towards football. And the reason why they want that is because those are some bruisers, man. Those guys are the epitome of toxic masculinity. They're freaking 300 pounds. They're running 4.40s. They're crashing into dudes and they're bleeding and they don't want that. But newsflash, the NFL is never going anywhere. It's just not. They'll change it. They've made accommodations, obviously, towards concussion protocols and stuff like that, but they're not going to change it. So, like, every time I see an attack on, "Oh, this guy fell dead on the football field," I understand what they're doing. It's an attempt at destroying one of the last, models of masculinity that we can witness, but it's too big. It's just too big.
Can we stop calling it toxic masculinity and just call it masculinity, because it just is masculinity now? We got little sissies running around that are scared to be men. Yeah, I said it. And whatever. You're not masculine. You're feminine. So let's just take the toxic out and be real about it. But it's funny.
I'm sorry.
It's funny you mentioned the UFC, because I watched the fights last weekend, 2 weekends ago, whenever it was. I don't remember right now. But yeah, and there was a couple fighters that after their post-fight interview, one of them called the audience a bunch of fags.
Yeah.
And I thought that was hilarious, because snowflakes around the world exploded. It was wonderful.
For no real reason other than they just want to, I don't invest much in stupid name calling. A lot of people do. It's just a fucking word at the end of the day.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. Why I laugh so hard is because he's got these people telling him how he can and can't speak. And he's still an American. So it may be offensive, but so what? He still has the right to say it.
Absolutely. Who was that, Andy? Who said that?
God, I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember. I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
But he probably has already done more than probably 95% of the people out there bitching about it.
Oh yeah.
That's the thing. It's easy to sit back and do nothing, take zero fucking risks with your health or with your words or life, or it's easy to do that. And that's what they do. That's for the most part, so you see it everywhere you look. It's the brave thing right now, but the real thing, the new currency it's coming. We've talked about this often. The pendulum is coming back, and the currency is authenticity, and that's what people will be looking for moving forward. That's why people like Joe Rogan have exploded, and the people can hey, this fake virtue signaling shit is coming to an end, and that doesn't mean that more feelings will get hurt and more
don't care about your
violence
feelings. You know what? I say I don't care about your feelings, and that's probably a little bit harsh, because, well, for the average person, I really don't, because you don't care about me or my rights, so why should I care about yours? But it's not really true. For friends and family, obviously, I'm not going to go and overtly try to hurt anyone's feelings. But at the same point, don't tell me how to talk and what I can and can't say, especially since I fought for your right to be able to do that. So I'll say this last thing, then we'll get off the politicking thing. But for those that are trying to silence people and talk about toxic masculinity, you can eat a fat baby's dick for as far as I care. But let's talk about some heroes, man.
Do it.
I'm going to jump right off the bat with Clint Eastwood.
Ah, you fucker.
Well, go ahead and take him. I got.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You know, I'm the one that's got the fucking action figure of Clint
This is
back
true.
here. No, go ahead. You can have
This,
it. Do it. Because you.
Well, I'll just say, I'll just tell you my favorite movie with him, and then I'll back off, and then I'll let you take it.
Oh, this is going to take an hour because I'm already thinking of some. But go ahead. What do you
Heartbreak Ridge.
Damn, that's a good one. You know what? I'm going to watch that this weekend.
Do you have a ghost? I just saw your door open.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So,
yeah, that's a great one. You know, well, I'm interrupting you here. Go ahead and tell me what you love about it.
Well, so first of all, it was portrayed a Marine reconnaissance unit that deployed to Grenada in '83, I believe it was. And it was just completely not true at all, period. We did go to Grenada, but it was actually a Ranger unit that seized the airfield and did what they did. However, those that don't know, Marine reconnaissance is the special operations of the Marine Corps. So they made the recon unit look like a bunch of bumbling, stumbling idiots. From that perspective, I did not like the movie at all. But, dude, Clint Eastwood plays the Marines Marine. I mean, from that aspect, they really got it right. Oh, and the other thing is that the movie is supposed to have been taking place in Camp Lejeune, which is on the East Coast in North Carolina. It was filmed in Pendleton. Camp Pendleton, which is on the West Coast and, north of San Diego. And if you've ever been stationed there, you knew right away that ain't freaking Lejeune. Not even close. But that's besides the point. No, there were so many one-liners in there from Clint that if you weren't really paying attention, you missed a gold mine. Like when he's in the courtroom after they get him out of jail in the very beginning scene.
Right.
With the cop telling him, you're going to pay.
I just backed out real quick. I wanted to shut that door because they're out there. My two dogs out there fighting. Sorry.
That's all right. You can do that on camera. I don't give a shit. It just made me think we freaking crashed again. But
probably did more damage to do that.
Probably. Anyway, so yeah, he's coming out. He's walking with the sergeant major who was the command representative. So many things wrong with that. But anyway, when the cop's telling him, I don't give any service members discounts, and he's like, too bad your old lady does, and just shit like that.
Yeah.
Beats the crap out of the dude, the big fat dude in
Swede.
That's before him when he was in jail.
Okay, right. It's coming back to me. But I remember Swede. Dude, I remember Swede because I remember that was what I wanted to look like Swede. I wanted to have all that freaking muscle, and he comes in and he just gets his ass handed to him. I seen that in the theater with my dad.
Getting back to the Swede, big Swede Johansson. You were saying that he's what you wanted to look like.
Yeah, that was the thing because that was, probably the beginning of that male manliness, right? We all had the He-Man dolls that represented the size and the strength, and Stallone was just kind of Arnie, all those guys, and then you see Swede, and he was massive, dude.
Yeah,
he
was.
And then going back and looking at Eastwood today, he was pretty defined. He had some muscle. He's a tall guy. I think he's 6'3", 6'4". If you take that into consideration, he's actually a good sized, fit, strong looking guy. And but compared to that guy, he didn't look like at least then. So
right.
I love that, man. That's just the part that stood out to me. And then he hands him his ass, and then he's loyal. Like I said, he's loyal like a dog throughout the remainder of the show. And
here's what I liked about that particular scene. wasn't so much that he kicked the big dude's ass. I looked at it from a leadership perspective, and he saw an opportunity that a Marine that's been in trouble, but everybody just kind of casted him away. He saw something in that Marine that he knew would make an outstanding Marine. And so instead of calling the MPs and have him go back to the brig, Johansson says, "Sir, I'll wait outside for the MPs." And he said, "Negative, Johansson. You're going to learn to be a Marine."
That's right. I forgot the voice. Yeah, you're way more. Did you watch this recently? Because
No, I've seen this movie,
so many-
I don't know how many times, man.
yeah, yeah.
It was just a great leadership lesson. It's like, all right. And, being the first time I saw it, I was very young in the military. So it taught a very valuable lesson. You
Yeah.
don't give up on everybody, but at the same time, there's some turds you got to just let go.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah.
I like when they're going out on that patrol exercise with the Miles gear, and you've got the young ass Lieutenant Ring. He's like, "Are you going to be joining us, sir?" He's like, "Negative, Gunny. I'm late for preschoolers school." It's like so fucking typical of a second lieutenant, man. They're just, oh my god, that they got right. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great one. I'm gonna even go back maybe a little, well, probably the same generation, but a lot of people today consider his movies a little bit cheese. Um, and they probably are if you're looking, some of them. At least when I kind of came into them, the movies that I was watching with my parents from DVD or on cable, and that's Charles Bronson.
oh yeah,
The Death Wishes,
oh
and
yeah,
I still, dude, I'd go back, but I'm such a sucker for that stuff. I realized that if I showed my kids that, they'd probably, they'd be laughing. It's kind of almost, I can't say that it stood up well. It hasn't really lasted
yeah,
the test of time, but I still love them. And again, it's that whole nostalgic thing. But Bronson was, I've read a lot of stuff on him. I'd actually like to read more because, from my understanding, he came across as an asshole behind the scenes to a lot of people. Just depends who you talk to or what you're reading. But for the most part, I think from what other, people say that he was like that, it was because he just didn't have much time or patience for those, the Hollywood types that you see that needed to be pampered.
right,
Maybe he didn't have much patience for that at all. He knew why they were there, maybe looks, maybe they were the hot new thing. And he just didn't seem to really go along with that. Which is funny because I could only imagine a Charles Bronson in today's fucking Hollywood, right? Can you even imagine what that would be like? I don't think he'd last too long. He'd either find a new occupation or a bunch of other people would, like they are now, soon find a new occupation.
right. Or he could take the comedian's approach, and you can't cancel somebody who doesn't give a shit.
I don't think from everything I've read on him, I don't think he would have given a shit at all,
Exactly.
And I think that, at the end of his career, you can kind of see him cashing in. Maybe the work's a little representing a little less integrity. But I think at that point he already didn't. He's like, "Fuck, I'm gonna bank. I'm gonna get out." Yeah. So he's one of the guys that that's kind of just an off the wall one because obviously there's a lot bigger names out there, and we'll get to those. But that's a guy that kind of
I don't know, man. When I think of heroes of the '80s and the '70s, he's one of the first ones that pops up, man. But then again, I'm like you. I watched it with my dad. My dad was a huge Charles Bronson fan, so
no bullshit either, right? He was ripped to the core. Remember how peeled he was like back in the day, and then even he got more into the suits and shit. Came Death Wish, and was it Kinjite or whatever the hell it was called?
Bless you.
He was ripped, and that's what you got back then. You got a hard ass guy that was protective of women, but dirty to the bone, man, and just ruthless at times. And he gave that to you like so many other guys of that generation did. Maybe we're a little more charismatic when it came to women. Bronson wasn't,
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Get back in the
You walk
kitchen.
around with that mug. There's only the roles.
He would definitely be labeled a misogynist in today's society, man.
100%.
But different time, right? He lived in a different world.
Yeah. Who else do you have?
Man, I just had one at the top of my head, but it slipped off. So I'm going to go back to Eastwood, and I'll say the movies that I freaking just loved were Any Which Way But Loose.
Dude, yeah, I seen that in the theater. Love it, still love it.
Yes.
And then what was the other one? Any Which Way You Can, right? Where he fought. Was it Jack Wilson?
Was it Philo Bettis or some?
Philo Bettis, but you remember the riggers got together. They wanted the bookies, and they wanted to line up that second fight.
Yeah.
I'm jumping ahead here, but
What's that? I missed your last part.
I said I'm jumping ahead.
No. It is what it is, man. There's no rules on this show, man. This is our show. We do what we want, sucker. You want to jump ahead, then you jump ahead.
Just talk some shit.
That's right. But anyway, don't let this shit happen again.
Yep, that's a great movie. God, we could go on. Like, what did he had? My favorite, and I seen this in the theater too, and that's what I got right back there. The Pale Rider.
Yes.
Yeah, so I seen that figure come up. We talked about this the other night, and I was like, I gotta have that fucking thing, dude. And it's spot on, like the act, like the everything, the sculpting. But I loved that movie, and it's really kind of a Shane. If you've seen Shane or know of Shane, it's a lot like that. But that's a great one.
His westerns, he didn't have a lot of dialogue in them, which I think kind of helped his career in a way, because there was that mystery about him. You know what I mean? There was dialogue, but not like when you get to the Dirty Harry series and all the other movies that he's put out since then. But yeah, that's what I kind of liked about it. He was just a no nonsense. You never had to wonder where you stood with his characters. You know what I mean? Because he'd tell you. It'd be
giving you what you wanted, and in most cases, it was probably what the guys wanted. Dirty Harry. And that was, he's an interesting study, because there was our culture when we've got what 40s, 50s, 60s, when Hollywood's really kind of blowing up, and it's westerns all over the place. You got Bonanza, Big Valley,
Rawhide,
The Rifleman, Have Gun Will Travel, just tons of westerns. He's in that when that's in fashion. He's right there. He's the one producing the big movies. And then there's a transition, and that's after the 60s, where you see the transition from, well, we got away from westerns. Why did we get away from westerns? And the reason was because it switched over to the cops, right? We kind of talked about this the other night, and wouldn't you know it, who's the front runner on that, right? Clint Eastwood. He does it with Dirty Harry. I think that's 71, 72 maybe.
You're skipping an important period, though. You're skipping all of the World War II movies,
right?
That came out, and he was in.
Well, I was kind of going more or less how he went. He did those, but the craze at the time was the westerns, right?
Right.
It was the westerns, and then the next craze becomes the cop movie, the detective movie, and we're still kind of in that. It's really big through the 70s, 80s. Then it becomes buddy cop movies, and cops were the guy. Because they were representing what we wanted to do to the bad guy, right? And the westerns before that, you're kind of coming into that, and yeah, he was pioneering both of them, though. He did the westerns, and then he rolls right into the cop movies because about that time you don't see a whole lot of westerns until 85, when he brings back the Pale Rider.
Yes,
and that's a great western, and then he does it again in 92, right, with The Unforgiven, when Will Money. So
great movies.
Yeah, you got The Preacher, you got The Mummy, and then you got Blondie and The Man with No Name, right? So, yeah.
I did love the Dirty Harry series, though.
Yeah.
It's just like I I couldn't relate watching as a kid, but going back as an adult and just the similarities between that and being in the military, I could feel exactly where his character was, man. It's like I'm fucking tired of all this fucking bullshit. I'm gonna do it my way because that gets results.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking felt that shit, man. And that's exactly what he did. He didn't give a shit. He was gonna get the bad guy by hook or by crook.
Yeah, he had a lot of complaints about the military, right? So he kind of took action for himself. So having said that, take that character of Clint Eastwood's and put him in today's freaking military where, half of
Oh,
them are freaking,
he's like
yeah,
me. He wouldn't survive. It just would be run out.
right.
Yeah. I love the classic scene, where it's a 44 Magnum, 44 caliber, whatever, most powerful handgun in the world. You gotta ask yourself, do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? And then he fucking blows him away
Yeah.
because the other dude didn't know how to count. In all the excitement, I kind of forgot myself. Did I fire 5 shots or 6?
Yeah, and they couldn't do that, that scene that you're talking about. I forget the actor, but he was a black guy, and, that was where if people were gonna take offense to that today, it would be, well, it's a stereotypical black criminal. The whole movie starts off with him shooting in the streets, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and that's, you couldn't do that today, those the idea was to show the people that were tired of being, on subways or mugged or whatnot.
Right.
They were trying to show that, and they happened to use a black character for that, and I just don't, you can look all over TV today, and you're not gonna find that, and if you do, it's almost shocking at this point, so,
That's racist.
yeah. Well,
Everything's racist.
everything's racist, so,
Everything. You're racist.
yeah.
I'm racist. Wouldn't you want to be a racist to be a racist? Wait, sorry, never mind.
Real nostalgia there, dude.
That's right. And some of you will get that. A lot of you won't.
That was so that the commercial was the dude. God, what's his fucking name? American Werewolf in London, and I can't think of his name right now. But remember, he was actually the guy that started. He was
Yep.
doing that. I think he was in some show, and they fired him. Dr. Pepper. He was. I think it was American Werewolf in London because he was naked in that or something. So they fired him from the commercials because of
Oh,
that.
could
That's
be.
how
Yeah.
conservative we were back then. Today, they give you a fucking raise, right?
Right.
Especially if you're freaking transgender naked in a commercial.
And make you
Or
woman
naked.
of the year
Yeah, you get Woman of the Year, correct.
with your twig and berries. Yeah, baby.
Are we done on Eastwood, or do we want to stick with that? Or
We'll come back to him. We'll come back.
yeah, well, like this can't go because he almost does it later on. He redoes Dirty Harry with Sylvester Stallone, right?
Mm.
I mean, you think of the movies he gives Rocky, he gives us Rambo. He gives us
What do you mean? Well,
yeah,
I didn't draw first blood. They drew first blood.
I didn't do it. What did you say? I'm gonna get spit on.
That's pretty
It
good.
was
Do it
news
again.
to me, right? Because I didn't know the Vietnam War back then, for those that weren't around, was everywhere. That seemed to be the topic in the 70s. Nobody wanted to really talk about it because it was so ugly. It's such an ugly war that we were coming out of, and people were really afraid to make the movies. And they start rolling in, like with the movie we covered, The Deer Hunter, kind of sets
Mhm.
the stage for, oh shit, it's okay to talk about it. Um, I knew that there was an ugly war because my dad, was a big history guy. And then he comes along, and I just fell in love with that movie. My brother had seen it, asked me if I'd seen it. I said no. I snuck it up on HBO and that was First Blood. And I kind of started to get my first idea of, here's a vet. He's maybe got some trauma, and he's gonna rip this fucking city apart. And to this day, man, I'll never forget remember Trotman? They bring Trotman. The sheriff brings Trotman in. The sheriff played by Brian Dennehy, and he says, what does he
Colonel
say to him?
Trout.
He goes, so how do I get him? And he goes, well, if you're planning on going after Rambo, you better bring a lot of body bags. And even my little young brain was like, God, that's so cool, And he had the knife.
Oh yeah.
Actually, on pre-order, I have the Rambo 2 figure because they just they put that up for pre-order the other day.
Nice.
Weeks back, and I fucking locked that in because it looks just like him. It's got the little knife and bow and arrow and
Hmm.
bombs, shit like that. I was like, I got to put that back there in that collection.
So I was able to relate to that because my dad was a Vietnam vet, and I went and saw it in the movie theater with him, and I don't I don't remember when, but it was very young in my life that I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was going to join the military. And so at that point in my life, I was like, anything I could get my hands on militarily, I was all over, books, movies, anything. So, and that was way before the internet. So we had to go and actually physically search that shit out for you younger folks that aren't listening anyway. But, yeah, what a fantastic movie, man. I loved it.
Are we talking one or are we talking two?
The first one.
Okay, First Blood. Yeah, it's a great movie. It's really well done, and we get to see a guy just pretty much tear up a fucking town. My son was writing an essay last year, and just between you and I, he was way behind on his summer school. We had to make up some work, so I said, "Well, I'll write that essay out for you." And the conversation was, it was show an angle or a hero or something like that that's a bad guy but maybe a good guy. I use Rambo because if you're it's really just a perspective there, right? If you're the sheriff and he comes to your town, you're trying to protect you've got to do your job.
Right.
And that is, I got to know who this guy is. Seems like harassment, but he just is playing it safe. It's a small town, better not take the risk. Let's just get this guy out of town now while we can. So he's protecting, and then on the other hand, you see it from Rambo's perspective where that's not right. It's kind of discrimination. He's a little, he's looking a little rough, a little haggard, but that doesn't mean he's not a good guy. There's two ways to really look at that, and there's two bad guys in that movie. It just depends how you're looking at it. If you're looking at the sheriff, he seems like the bad guy. But if you look at it from behind his eyes, he's only trying to protect his town, and it just kinda blows up in his face. Now, maybe I'll bet you 9 out of 10 times if you were to ask him, "Would you do things differently?" Right? They should do a reboot, like, "Would you do things differently?" and have a movie about him from his side. He'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I definitely would have been kinder to this guy. Maybe give him a hotel room and a meal for the night, but not been so mean."
Well, I liken it to great, great point, by the way. I liken it to good initiative, bad judgment. The reason behind why the sheriff was doing it was very appropriate, right? Maybe the way he went about it wasn't so great because, like you said, both parties were wrong.
Yeah.
After the initial contact was made, so they both could have de-escalated, but instead, neither one of them did, and they fucked some shit up.
Yeah, and he doesn't kill anybody till it's kind of by accident, right? And that's the helicopter guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can't remember now. It's been years, but I think he throws something, or the
It was
helicopter
a
guy
rock or something, right?
was it, yeah. And it's like, and the guy dies, obviously. But I don't think other than that, he tears the town up. He gets some attention, but other than that, I don't think that it was too. But again,
Oh,
you can
he
look at
did.
that. What's that?
He did fuck some dudes up though with his booby traps.
Yeah, yeah, but he has the opportunity to kill the kid, right? The young hunter that's out looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that little spear on the knife and a knife and spear. By the way, that action figure comes with that same little stick, and you can knife to it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but you can see it from both angles, and that's there's a real genius to that. Like, because when I remember back then, you could look and you could paint a picture like, and they kind of do it with quote Cobra Kai, right? They kind of give you Johnny Lawrence's take, like maybe let's look at it through this guy's eyes. And that's a lot like Rambo. It's kind of the same thing. I understand the cop's the bad guy, but I understand why he's doing what he's doing and why he did what he did. But I just maybe he could have handled it. Maybe he could have taken, what do you call that? People skill. Because all shit, and that shit broke loose hard and fast. I'll come back and they're spitting in my face. They call me baby killer.
Nice. I love it. Give me more encore.
I don't have any more than that. I can't remember the lines.
Oh, well, I guess you're
I
fucked.
remember. I always remember Rambo 2 because I did. We've talked about this, I believe. I had to sneak into that. I was too young, but I had to see it because at this point I was absolutely in love with the guy, and that's not
Gay.
gay. But I was, man, and I went. I wanted to see it. My parents were okay with it, and I couldn't figure out how to get into it because you couldn't just get into it. You couldn't buy a ticket, if you were under 17. My parents didn't want to go, so I had to sneak me and a friend went, and what we did was bought at the time. I'm pretty sure the movie was Lady Hawk was out. So we bought a ticket to Lady Hawk. That was PG. We got into the theater. So now we've got access to all the doors. And we just walked into Rambo. But I remember there was some lady all by herself. And remember the mudslide when he's hidden in the mud?
Yes.
And then the guy walks by the enemy and also you see the eyes open and that lady started fucking clapping. And I was like, God damn, this is it, right? This is the shit. But yeah, that was. I don't even know where the hell I was going with that, but
that's I was in it. I was following you. You just led me nowhere.
It's a great. Oh, the line at the end when he breaks free and Murdoch was talking to remember it was just a employee mission or whatever. They were fucking him over, kind of just a game, and then he grabs the microphone. And, Murdoch.
Oh yeah.
Remember he's grabbing the mic and he's like freaking. You can see all this muscle and beans, and he's all like, and he remember Murdoch's just hanging out. He goes, "I'm coming for you." And I was like, dude, my fucking little kid hairs were standing on my arm. Like that was so glorious, dude.
I remember. Oh yeah, you're like, yeah.
It was because he, and I say this a million times over. I love the guy. Even today, man, I love the Tulsa King. But the guy just knew, and that was kind of the thing. He knew, even though, and he's not an idiot. He's a smart guy. He knows that maybe this comes across as cheesy, but he knows I want to drive this home. I know you're gonna, even as much as you may not want to, you're gonna love this.
Tulsa King. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
Because.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely have to because we're gonna have to bring it back. But yeah, so anyhow, he does Cobra later on, which is almost a Dirty Harry ripoff. Actually, two characters in the movie that were in Dirty Harry. So I can't remember who they were now, but
I don't remember either. I
think it was his partner. He was also the same partner of
Dirty Hispanic Harry. Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was somebody else, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But that was a great movie. A lot of people think it's cheese, but it's not.
It was cheesy.
And and this wasn't an action hero one, but I'll go to my grave with this one, man. Rhinestone, dude. You can't, remember I told you I got to get you that. I got to get you the file for that, dude. It's a guilty pleasure, and I told you the story behind. He was supposed to play this masculine taxi driver from New York City, and Dolly Parton brings him on because she made a bet that she can't make him a country recording artist. And it's just kind of a fish out of water type of thing. He ends up going into, I think she was in Nashville, Tennessee or something. He's living in the country. But I had seen that as a kid, and I knew even as a kid, it's so cringy. But there's song moments at the end, and when he knows you're gonna maybe cringe at this, or you're gonna get, but you're gonna feel it. And the music was actually pretty decent. And I showed my wife for the first time. I told you right after we got married, and it happened to be, I think it was on TV, and I put it on, and the whole time she was like, "Oh my God." And she could look away, and she goes, "It's really good though." And I was like, "Right?" I go, so that's kind of my guilty pleasure.
Stallone. I looked for it. I couldn't find it anywhere.
It's hard to find. Maybe he's not proud of it, but he should be. It's it's just like anything. We all make mistakes, or maybe it didn't work out like we thought. But in retrospect, it's good. And I think it's one of those shows that you have to maybe have watched that, because I watched it on HBO. It was on all the fucking time. I think it was like that and Follow That Bird and Octopussy. So it's like the same 3 movies just replayed and replayed.
Right.
So you
All
got
the-
to the evening when it was Friday the 13th, Porky's 2.
yeah.
But go
Yeah.
on. We got Stallone there. He does so much. Well, can you think of anybody else?
Oh, of course, man. The one, the only Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Get to the chopper. I loved Commando with his cheesy ass one liners, man. They were so bad. So bad that they were good.
Mhm.
You know. Remember, Sally, when I told you I'd kill you last? I lied. Just shit like that. Well, what happened to Sally? I let them go. He stabs the dude and says something of what he got the point or something. Just so horrible, man. But I don't know if it's because, you know, they they didn't want him to speak a lot because of the accent. I don't know, but it was definitely weird.
I don't think you were I think you were supposed to be stoic, right? That now it's women that do that. You see the stoic women. Am I saying that right?
Stoic.
Stoic women. You're seeing them everywhere. Like they're doing that. It's a long, silent. You get this, and that's all you get because I'm not here to fucking talk to you. You know, it wasn't until I think years later when what do they call that? The monologue or whatever, where the guy just fucking runs on about everything.
Yeah.
Like Blofeld or whatnot. I did this Bond because, and it's the whole. You know, they didn't do that. They were just to the point. I let them go, you know, or something like that. Or
So stupid. Because he's holding him by his leg over a cliff, right?
yeah,
Sally or whoever it was, and he literally let him go and killed him. But he's like, I let them go. Come on, dude, give me a break. The action saved that movie, I tell you, because there was a lot of good action in that, and there was a very young Alyssa Milano that was in that movie. Who?
Yeah, I it's been forever. You know, what we should do is spin all of these off that we're mentioning later on and do short movie reviews on them.
Sounds good.
Branch this whole damn thing off. But yeah, that was a good one. He did Conan, which that was my first introduction to him. And I remember, God, who is this guy? And that's, you know, again, I was like, oh, he's so muscular. And my mom's like, oh, he's like the Mr. Olympia or something like that. So they knew who he was, and he just broke into mainstream.
I'm hearing maybe a little bit of homosexual undertones going on here. You've been talking about dudes with muscles a lot.
Dude, you know what, man? Yeah, I mean, maybe. I'll tell you what, there were so many times that I always was a weightlifter as a kid, and I would go, and I would a lot of the time want to see, you know, how you know, you can see Stallone change over the years.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it was fascinating. You know, I think you either have that or you don't. The ability to change the body. You can go with fat, you can go to thin, you can go to muscular, and it just always kind of, you know, I was fascinated with it. So, you know, I guess it wasn't that I didn't like the women, but sometimes I had a lot of respect. You know, and don't think Stallone doesn't look at other guys and go appreciate. You know, man, you must put in some fucking work. Oh, you must have put in some work.
Well, you know, you look pretty kind of swollen. Can I show you my swelling?
Looking very swollen, then.
I love it. How about Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Yeah, that was finishing up our 80s, right? Rolling into the, I think 89 was it 89, 88 Bloodsport, right? Yeah, he was great. So I fell for all those movies. I haven't seen them in years. I have watched Bloodsport recently with my daughter, and it's one of those movies. It's so short that you can get through it quick, and it does entertain you because you get to see the different fighting styles. It's kind of dark in its own way, which is draws you in, see how far it can go. It's like a video game almost. And of course, they made video games a lot just like it. You know, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter.
I'm not ashamed to say that I watched Bloodsport probably, I don't know, 100 fucking times, man.
Yeah, and I wouldn't. Yeah, you shouldn't be ashamed of that. It's like any, you know, what he kind of did with that movie was give us everything that if you liked Chuck Norris, and I love Chuck Norris, is he gave you that movie in particular. Chuck Norris never put together a movie where he got to just exhibit. It was all about fighting.
Right.
He
Hold
fought.
on. Hold that thought because I got a trivia question for you.
Okay.
What was the first movie that Van Damme was actually in?
Breaking 1,
I think
right?
it was No Retreat, No Surrender.
That was his first starring role, right? He was actually co-starring, but his first
Co-starring because
he's
he.
in Breaking. He's in the background dancing. He's
Oh,
actually like the
oh, you mean
background.
like this
Yeah,
stupid
yeah.
ass
He's in that onesie.
drunk ass white man dance?
Onesie, yeah, trying to stand out. Yeah, yeah. Woo, man.
Wow. What a guy. What a guy. All
Yeah,
right.
and I heard
Moving
him.
right along.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
We're talking Chuck Norris.
Yeah, we can roll on into Chuck. Yeah, I mean that's what Van Damme did with Bloodsport. Was he gave us a whole thing about fighting. Where if you watch the Chuck Norris movie, they were trying to fucking sneak in a movie. Because I don't know.
Right.
If see, I was so big into karate back then, and he came along, and I was like, oh my god, I loved Bruce Lee at first. Then my dad introduced me to Chuck Norris. I think I watched. I can't remember the movie Enter the Dragon. I don't think it was that.
That was
I
Bruce
can't
Lee.
remember. Chuck Norris was the bad guy in it.
Oh, yeah. That was. It wasn't Enter the Dragon, but I know exactly which one you're talking about. Uh-oh.
Yeah, so I got into him. I started to see Chuck Norris in the fighting. The Octagon's it's tough to get through. There's kind of a blown apart story there. It's not real exciting. Men in what was it? Mission. What's the other one? He played in Mission in Action, which Missing in Action, which we just talked about, which I did enjoy. That's a pretty decent, solid movie. But you didn't even in that he doesn't. There's not much karate. You don't
Mm-mm.
get the skills. You don't get to see him in action. He's more of an action star than he is a karate star. And then Van Damme comes along in Bloodsport and brings us the karate star.
How about my favorite Chuck Norris movie, which is the precursor to Walker, Texas Ranger? Lone Wolf McQuade.
Yeah.
Great freaking movie, man. I just
Yeah.
watched it maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah, that's a good movie. Well, I seen that so many. It was on the HBO loop too, and I'd watch that every time. Um, David Carradine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I heard they didn't get along, right? Didn't they actually have a fight? Because Carradine was a big kung fu guy, right? Coming out of the show Kung Fu, and I think they actually got into a fight, like on set. But
Wow, that'd be a cool story to go into.
yeah,
I didn't know anything about that.
yeah, I think there was some real tension between the two.
Hmm.
Like it was, and maybe it was for the sake of the movie, but I don't know. But great movie, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. And look what it did. It spun off a wildly successful TV series for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if you watched any of it was pretty cheesy, but any of the later episodes, like right before they canceled it, they'd show Chuck getting ready to do a kick and then they'd cut the scene and be clearly some other dude fucking doing the kick. And I was like, oh, come on, man. You can't do Chuck like that. You can't let him go out like that.
I did. Is that the Ranger towards the end?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't. I think after Matlock, dude, because it looked like the same show, but Matlock was going to be more lawyery, if that makes sense. And then Chuck was going to be more
lawman,
like order kind of thing. And I just couldn't. I would watch some, but they were at that point. I think I was in my early 20s, and they were just so fucking cheesy to me. I was actually surprised that they tried to recycle that, and no slam on it. It is what it is. It serves its purpose, but to reboot that fucking show. I mean, that show was, again, it was like Matlock, and there's nothing wrong with Matlock, but Matlock wasn't the greatest lawyer show of all time. It was a reinvention of Perry Mason.
You know, if they would redo or reboot Lone Wolf McQuade and not Walker, Texas Ranger, I think there would be more success. But I agree with you, man. You try to bring that show back, forget about it. Ain't nobody gonna watch it.
You can't do it because that's what they hate everything about that today. I mean, modern Hollywood hates everything about that stoic Chuck Norris, and Lone Wolf McQuade, right? Same thing. Very few lines. He wasn't the best actor, right? Like he'd show up, give me a pearl. You know, you get his beer, and there was not a lot to say. Very Steve McQueenish, right? Steve
Mhm.
McQueen kind of creates that whole persona with Bullet, right?
Yep.
But Steve McQueen was very good at what he did because if you go watch that movie, he didn't have to say shit. It actually made it better that he didn't. And there's rumor that, or maybe fact, that he actually had lines removed. He said, "Get this shit out and give it to that guy," which that's unheard of, right, in Hollywood. But that's what he did. He wanted it to be, I'll speak with my actions, I'll speak with my face and my emotions. Bullet is
Wasn't
great.
wasn't Paul Newman like that a little bit too at the beginning?
I'm not
I don't
sure.
know, but he
Maybe
makes a hell of a salad dressing.
he sure does, and popcorn. Yeah, I'm not sure whether he was or not. But I do know that was intentional. So McQueen was again like a Stallone, and he was, he starts kind of bringing in the cop, the action movie. That's
Mhm.
in '69. Bullet. Later we get Dirty Harry, but McQueen does a great job of giving us what we want. They said that, or his wife said, who was also his. So he didn't ever read a script.
Hmm.
They'd give him a script, and at that point, he'd gotten so big that he would just say he'd give it to his wife, and she would read it, and her knowing him like she did would say, "You're
Hmm.
gonna fucking love this. This is for you." So
Could
he
he
went on.
read?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I
Hmm.
just don't think he was a no. He was just a fucking dude, man. That's what he was. He was exactly what we're here to talk about, an action hero, but in real life. I mean,
A
he really
man's
was.
man.
He didn't fucking care. He smoked. He drank. There's a story. That I can't remember what movie he was making, but he was doing a movie, and it was one of his friends, I think, or somebody he knew, an actor. He's you'd know him if you looked him up. Um, and his wife had fucked around with him. They had kind of split up or something, and she'd fucked around, and he found out about it. So
Mm.
McQueen did what guys did. Now today they'd probably get on Twitter and talk about it, talk shit. So McQueen, I forget how it happens. He's in a bar because he was in a bar all the fucking time, right? He just liked to stop and drink. Um,
We call
and
them
the guy walked in with his
alcoholics.
wife. Maybe it was the guy walked in with his. Yeah, he walked in with another girl. They were talking about a movie or something, and McQueen walked up to him and fuck out of this guy. This guy confirmed it. Beat this fucker senseless in the parking lot. Came
Got
back
what he
in and said,
deserved.
yeah. And that's how McQueen handled shit. He lived kind of like how he portrayed his characters on screen, but he was kind of that guy that he took a role based on that, but he knew what, again, like we talked about Stallone earlier, he knew his audience, and he understood
Right.
that this is what they want. And that's what he would say. He changed the scripts and stuff like that, take lines out, never adding lines from what my understanding, taking them out because he knew that this is what my audience wants, and that's what I'm going to give them. And fucking try that shit today because there's no way. It's actually quite the opposite. It's like, here's what they want. Let's
Right.
fucking give them this then. You
You know,
know?
they typecast themselves, and that's fine because they were talented enough and smart enough to realize that they're doing that to themselves, but now they've got a niche. Now they've got a market.
Yeah. And if you had like you said, they didn't care. I am this guy. I'm not pandering for a fucking academy. If I get one, great, but that's not my goal. I know who I am. I'm an action star.
Right.
Stallone's a great actor. Eastwood's a great actor. It wasn't their biggest concern.
Mhm.
It just wasn't, and you see it all too often where it really is their biggest concern. A guy I point to so often, man, because I loved his early stuff, was Tom Hanks, right? Tom Hanks was once a funny guy.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
long time ago.
look, the worst thing, in my opinion, that happened to Tom Hanks, of course, people love him for it, but was when he won the Academy for Forrest Gump,
Mhm.
which to me is an overrated fucking movie anyway. Like, I remember hearing all kinds of shit. I finally seen it, and I was like, this is it? This is really. But before that, he had one for Philadelphia, and dude, that was
Right.
the end of Tom Hanks as I knew him. Don't forget he was in Big, he was in Splash. He was a funny guy. Bachelor Party, which is fucking hysterical.
Money
I
pit.
imagine probably embarrassed. Yeah, Money Pit, The Burbs. When was the last time anybody seen that guy? Now he's the fucking white savior. He's the white soft-spoken savior. In every fucking movie, he's like the leader. Like, dude, when he releases a movie, I already know what it's gonna be. Oh, let me guess, you're the guy that's got total control. Um, and you're
Everything.
just a soft fucking dude that's gonna save everybody on a plane or a bus or a ship, or it's
Hey,
always the same fucking
you
thing.
want to know what my favorite line is from Forrest Gump? I'm sorry I started a fight at your Black Panther party.
I haven't seen that show. I watched it one time and that was it. I keep telling myself to go back and watch it again, but
I liked it.
did you? That to
Yeah.
me, the hype I had heard, oh, it's so good, and I finally seen it, and I was like, fuck,
But
okay,
I saw it when it first came out, so it wasn't
yeah,
like I guess I had an unbiased opinion about it.
yeah. I got buddies that love it, dude. To me, I'm a bigger fan of the old Hanks.
Yeah.
I know he's never gonna go back to that guy again, and great. A lot of people love him. He sells movies. That's what he's good at. He is a good actor. But he plays for that, and those guys didn't. They didn't. They knew their
Right.
role. There was an action hero. There was a dramatic guy. And um, then there was like the comedies, the comedians, and now they're all kind of rolled into one. And
Right.
now what's worse is we see our fucking action stars that are doofs, and they think they're fucking comedians too. Right? There is no.
I just thought of one current action star, the only one that I could think of,
I know who you're gonna say.
The Rock.
Ah, no, fuck no, no.
He's the only one that could any sort of resemblance of an action hero of this era.
He is the typical action hero, and that's kind of where we're trying to go with this, right? He is everything, in my opinion, that's wrong with action heroes because he is. So you see him in a movie, he can save everybody but the woman, right? So he's always the goofball. He can beat the shit out of dudes in the movies, but when it comes to a female, he's the fucking dopey idiot that can't, like he goes up. How many times have you seen this in a movie? John Cena is another one, right? Well, they just fucking took on a whole team of Navy SEALs and took them out, or superheroes, or whatever the storyline is. And then they go to open they need to get into this guy's house or some shit, and they go to open the sliding glass door, and they can't fucking get it open. And the woman comes up and opens the door and goes, "There's a fucking lever here, you stupid fucking idiot." And they all go, "Oh, shit," like you don't see Arnold Schwarzenegger. They kicked that fucking glass window in. That's how it was. But today's Hollywood has to destroy the man. They got to make him a fucking joke. And try watching a John Cena movie, dude, where he's not like
I can't.
yeah, dude.
I can't do John Cena at
I
all.
don't mind him in certain things, but I can't go to my action hero for him because he's
Now,
gonna.
who did you think I was going to say?
I was hoping that you were gonna say Statham, Jason Statham.
Eh,
He doesn't.
you can make an argument for that. Yeah.
Well, I don't see him. Matter of fact, a movie I recommend is Operation Fortune, and he plays a badass. And there's a strong female lead in it too. I can't remember her, Aubrey Plaza.
Bless you.
She's in it too. But she serves the role. They all work as a team together. He's the badass. It's kind of like G.I. Joe, right? They all had their purposes. She would see the computer person. Oh, she's also a fucking Navy SEAL that kicks every dude's ass. No, it was his part, and then there was a black guy in it. It was like I think he was another tech guy. But it wasn't Statham doesn't really play the game of I'm gonna be the fucking idiot all the time.
Right.
He's the badass, and he kind of carries that throughout his roles.
What about the
That's why I like.
Expendables?
Yeah, and they got a new one of those coming out, right? But that's again coming back to Stallone, who he doesn't do
All
that
our
shit either.
heroes.
Yeah,
All our heroes.
He's come out and said he actually just kicked a bunch of people off set like about 3 months ago because he said, "Hey, take your woke shit and get it the fuck out of here." And he says, "If you're woke or I find out you're in any of this shit, you're not getting parts from my shows."
Good.
So yeah, because it doesn't need to trickle into that, right? Why can't we have an action hero that isn't a fucking doofus, right? I don't need the guy getting jokes. Here's a big one you see all the time. I've been watching that CSI, right? Which I love CSI, dude, and I don't hold a lot over this because of it. But one of the things I noticed there's guys or one white guy, and he's a doofus. And he's always like he'll be saying something and it's kind of far out and nerdy, and you'll just see the 3 female leads just staring at him like, "What a fucking idiot." They're kind to him, but it's really he's there to show you how strong they are and how fucking stupid
I
the white guy is. They're
can't
all
do it.
yeah, and that's what, The
Mm-mm.
Rock is in Cena movies essentially do the same thing. They fucking he can beat all the guys' ass and so can the female, but when it comes to the 2 of them, he needs her help, like stupid shit, like tying your shoes or something. "No, there's a strap. All you have to do is," something stupid, and they'll
Right.
just belittle the guy, and
That's a great observation, by the way.
yeah, well, it's there, and it's not even so subtle anymore. Just look
Right.
at any show moving forward, and you'll see it. If you see a give me an example, you brought up The Rock, of The Rock where he's not that fucking bumbling idiot at some point.
In the ring.
The Ring, the
Can
movie
you
or the fucking
smell?
WWE? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, I never watched a whole lot of that, but
I didn't either. But anyway, hey, listen, it's about that time we wrap things up. But I do like your idea of we should take a movie from each actor that we mentioned today, tonight, whatever time it is, I don't fucking know. And then we'll review a movie, do a movie review on it.
yeah, we can do that. I suppose you're gonna take Clint.
No, I'll give you first choice.
No, that doesn't matter to me because there's so many out there. There's ones I didn't even get to. I'd like to read off some honorable mentions, by the way. We did Arnold, Burt Reynolds.
Oh yeah,
Burt was no, that was another guy, right? Like, of course, he was out publicly smacking people and shit. I don't know. There's a lot to Burt. Burt's pretty deep. He's a deep guy. We don't know
he's
probably
6 feet deep right now.
Ooh. Another Eastwood movie we didn't talk about was Outlaw Josie Wales, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
There's
so
so
I put
many with him though, man.
yeah, Stallone, Arnold, Burt, honorable mentions, maybe not. Mel Gibson,
Oh
Mad
yeah,
Max, Road Warrior, Lethal
Lethal
Weapon
Weapon
are
for
so
sure.
fucking good, dude. Those movies, those movies, if he doesn't say and do the shit he does, which a lot of people took offense to, um, in some cases, he was a little off his rocker. I think but those are great movies, man. Mad Max is a classic. Road Warrior is fucking awesome. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome probably isn't that great, but it is to me because it was on the HBO loop.
That's right.
We got Henry Winkler as the Fonz, man. There was a
Hey,
fucking time, dude, when he was an alpha male.
and that's so
Well
funny to me,
done.
man.
That he was that? Yeah.
Going back and watching some of the Happy Days, I'm like, if I'd had a confrontation with that dude, it'd have just been fucking over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know how he was considered such a badass, but whatever. We could
Well, he
really
wasn't
deep
a badass, it
dive.
was that role. Nate, that's what I'm
Right.
saying. I can't think of one other role. And what did he play that for 9, 10 years?
Yeah, but I mean, just the character of the Fonz. I just,
And it was the worst part is it wasn't just the character, dude. They could have very easily called that show Fonzie,
mhm,
Arthur Fonzarella. I
right.
mean, it was only Happy Days because of him. I mean, he took over that show and he took it over as a badass.
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts because the Henry Winkler I know today, he's still good. He's in Barry though. He just finished that up, but he's not. I had to look at that a couple times. And go, God damn, that was the Fonz, dude. That was the Fonz because it's and he must attest to his acting that he was able to make everybody think he was that tough guy. But
Yeah. It's just
um,
funny retrospectively, man.
yeah, and we can't go without talking about and it kind of fits under the Rocky umbrella, but Mr. T. Oh, Benny the
Pity the
Fool.
fool.
Yeah.
I ain't getting on no plane, Hannibal.
Now, for those that don't know much about Mr. T, you gotta think was it Rocky 3? And he's so
Clubber
fucking good
Lang,
in that.
baby.
Clubber Lang, dude, he's so good in them. Maybe your wife, like, come on, get a real man tonight. And then Rocky Team, and he plays the badass in that to just bend still with his freaking bare hands. And then we get the Mr. T cartoon, which I watch all the time. And he also had his own cereal, which people I don't know if do you remember the cereal? It was pretty much corn chips
Oh
or corn
man.
cereal,
I
but I
was
loved it.
I think I was already in the Navy once that cartoon came out, man.
No. What are you, 60?
I don't remember the cartoon at all.
Yeah, well, it was about the same time because remember they had Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, and we could have thrown in Hulk too, dude, because that dude, what a stud he was, you know.
I mean, I joined in '88, so I
Yeah,
don't.
well, Mr. T would have been on before that. It would have been on probably early, right when he got popular, right out of Rocky, because he.
But my point is, I was already in my teens, and I wasn't watching cartoons and shit.
Okay, I got you. You're right. Well, you should have been. There was DC Cab, and he comes out with that, and I went to see that fucking. I don't know if you've seen that show. It's a turd, dude.
Yeah, it's a fucking colossal turd.
It is a turd, but I had to see it because he was in it, and I was just at that, like, wow, this guy. Who is this guy? He was mysterious. No one had known of him. I think he was just a bouncer. That again, Stallone's genius. He does it several times throughout all of his movies. Like I just heard the story from Hulk on Rocky 3, where he brings him in and he brings Mr. T kind of the same way. He knows what people want.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what's going to get attention, and he did it. Yeah, but Mr. T, he ends up. There was actually a Christmas special I watched a couple of years ago because I always pull up all those cheesy Christmas specials on YouTube every year and watch it with my daughter. And he was in. I think it was a Webster's Christmas special.
Oh God!
He's like Santa Claus.
Mr. T Santa Claus.
Tell Santa what you want, boy.
I think I remember that.
Yeah,
I think I do remember that just because it was so ridiculous.
Yeah, we should cover some Christmas specials, dude. Like the fucking cheesier the better.
How about we'll do Halloween first since Halloween's coming up.
That's too scary for me. Now
cheesy Halloween movies.
We could go back. Yeah,
all of them. Next.
Special, dude. One of my favorite, we're getting way up, but Paul Lynde, you got to put that down in your watch list. I think you can get it free on YouTube, but if you cannot find it or get it, because do you remember who Paul Lynde was?
Yeah.
Okay. It's so bad. Like we watched it a couple years ago, and granted we were drinking because every Halloween we'll have some drinks and put on a special. But now that's become a routine because it's so bad. It's fucking great. And I this year I might actually purchase it.
What's it called again?
It's called the Paul Lynde Halloween Special. And it's a variety show because don't forget how big those were.
If you get it, I'm watching it with you.
Okay, dude. You know what? That's it. I'm buying it today. But they were the variety specials, right? You had Donnie Marie. You had the Andy Williams and
Cher, and
you can pull them up on YouTube, and I do every year. And I'll put the Christmas specials on, and dude, they are something.
What about the Barbara Mandrell?
Yeah,
show?
Dude, you can. It's fucking glorious, dude.
And one sister was so hot.
Yeah,
The young one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Gatlin brothers had one. Remember the Oak Ridge Boys? God,
Oh,
we
yeah.
should cover that. We should cover the bands that had they were
Shitty shows.
well, they were mixed between entertainers. And
Right.
I watched a Christmas show last year. Fuck, it was bad.
We got to wrap this up. I'm being paged. So ComNav Wife Pack is blowing my shit up right now.
Who?
My Connie,
Oh, okay.
the boss. But anyway, hey, everybody, thanks for listening, all 6 of you. And hope you enjoyed this show. And next week, we'll just bring you another one. How about that? Whether you want it to or not. Any last words, sir?
No, that's it, man. You're freaking burning us down here. So let's just wrap this
All right,
up.
be quiet so I can play the music. Shut up.